Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Laird of the Federal Retirement Thrift Investment Board. I want to thank our good friends here at OPM for sharing your platform with us and allowing us to have this conversation today. We're going to be talking about TSP transfers and rollovers. So over the course of the next hour or so, we'll be talking about what they are, when you can do them, how to do them, and most important, the title says the why and why not. I'm not going to presume to tell you why you should or shouldn't move your money, but hopefully we'll give you some decision points, some factors you can consider if you're contemplating a transfer or a rollover to help you make a decision that's going to really be in your best interest. To start, I want to talk about the terms that we'll be using. There's actually two different ways of moving your money between plans. Transfers and rollovers are not synonyms necessarily. They're two different ways to move your money. Transfer moves the money directly between the two financial institutions, whereas a rollover allows you to act as the middleman. You actually take a distribution or a withdrawal from one plan and put it in another. Oftentimes you'll see the two words used in the same sentence, almost as though they're interchangeable. And in some cases they are. In some cases the rules are the same. And we'll talk about rollovers or roll-ins or roll-outs without distinguishing between a transfer or direct rollover and the indirect rollover that you do yourself. But if you're the taxpayer, if you're the participant, the difference is possibly significant. Because again, when you do a transfer, the money moves directly between the two financial institutions. In a rollover, you're actually receiving a distribution, which is basically a taxable withdrawal until you perform the rollover and document the whole thing on your tax return. So rollovers indirect rollers can also have tax consequences. So unless you have a really compelling reason to want to handle the money, I think you're mostly going to be happier using transfers or direct rollovers to move your money between plans. We're also going to be talking about some of the different types of accounts that are available in the rollover process. And we'll be generalizing, there's kind of a bright line between IRAs or individual retirement accounts and what we'll refer to as plans. When we talk about plans, we're referring to eligible employer plans, and they come in a lot of different flavors. But as far as the rollover rules go, they have a lot of similarities, and they allow us to kind of draw a bright line between IRAs on the one hand and plans on the other. When you have the opportunity to move the money between those plans or accounts, well, if you're moving money into the TSP, your opportunities are virtually unlimited. The TSP can accept inbound rollovers pretty much any time. As long as your account is open and you haven't withdrawn the whole thing to reduce your balance to zero, you can move money in. And I really mean any time. That includes while you're working, after separation, or even after retirement. So unlike a lot of employer plans, the TSP is really designed to be an asset that you can keep for the rest of your life. And you can use it to consolidate all kinds of other retirement assets. Outbound transfers are a little more limited. Actually, an outbound transfer from the TSP is not a standalone transaction. You can only make outbound transfers as part of certain withdrawals, and your withdrawal options are somewhat limited. So you just have relatively fewer opportunities to move money out of the TSP into other plans. Any movement, whether it's in or out, has to be the type of withdrawal that the IRS calls a eligible rollover distribution. And we don't have time in this short program to go through the whole long list and distinguish one from another, but I can tell you where to look. There's a publication available at tsp.gov. It's called Important Tax Information About Payments from Your TSP, and that has the list. That goes through just about every kind of distribution you can imagine and lets you know whether or not you can roll it out of the TSP. If you have a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA and you want to know more about eligible rollover distributions and what kinds of distributions are actually things that you could transfer into the TSP, your go-to publication is IRS Publication 590A, 590-Alpha. There are also differences between Roth and traditional money in the TSP. Your opportunities depend on which balance you're transferring into or out of. As far as inbound transfers to your traditional balance, well, that money can come from any of those eligible employer plans or from a traditional IRA. With the Roth balance, you don't have the IRA option. Money can only come into your Roth TSP balance from other employer plans. And transferring money into the Roth balance literally does have to be a transfer. The TSP can't accept those indirect rollovers into the Roth balance. Outbound money, if you're transferring money out of the TSP, it can go to, from the traditional side, it can go to another employer plan in the traditional balance. It can go to a traditional IRA, or it can even go to a Roth IRA. Money going out of your Roth TSP balance can go to a Roth balance in another employer plan or to a Roth IRA. And if you're doing a direct transfer out of the TSP, again, you're not handling the money. It doesn't look like an income distribution. Therefore, the taxes remain deferred. There's no withholding taken, and there's no penalty. That's at least if you're retaining the tax character of the money. If you're going from the traditional TSP to a traditional IRA or employer plan, and going from the Roth TSP to a Roth IRA or employer plan. Now, I mentioned you can also take money from your traditional TSP and transfer it out to a Roth IRA. And that sounds like a pretty good opportunity. You're going to be taking money that's never been taxed and transferring it to a place that hopefully it'll never be taxed. And of course, along the way, when that distribution goes out, it will be reported as a taxable distribution. So you'll get a 1099-R, and you will be responsible for paying the tax on any money that's transferred from your traditional TSP to a Roth IRA. Actually, requesting the transaction is pretty easy. We just have a very simple form for requesting an inbound transfer. Actually, it's two forms. TSP 60 for traditional money and 60R for Roth money. And you have to fill out just the top portion of the form and then present that form to to the institution that's sending us the money. They actually have to certify, basically they're certifying that the money is an eligible rollover distribution. Now, that institution will probably have forms of their own, but all the TSP needs is the TSP 60 or 60R and the check. Because outbound transfers are part of a withdrawal, you'll see the transfer instructions on each of several withdrawal forms. So here's an example. Our TSP 70, which is a request for a full withdrawal. The instructions start on the very first page. So if you look at block 26, you'll see a checkbox. Very important that you let us know on the face of the form by checking that box that you intend to have us transfer some or all of that distribution. Then it's a multi-page form. As you go down through the form, you'll find pages with separate transfer instructions for both your traditional money and the Roth. And just like with the inbound, you just fill out the top part and present the form to the financial institution that's going to be receiving it, and they have to certify that they're able to receive that eligible rollover distribution. And to make it even easier, we suggest rather than printing out the paper forms and filling them out by hand, if you just go into your account and follow the links to the withdrawal wizard, answer a few questions, the wizard will fill out the form for you and present you with hopefully a nice legible form, all in good order, and that should help make your transaction go that much smoother. So that's the mechanical stuff. The rest of the afternoon, I want to talk about some of the factors that you can use to help you make a good decision about whether to transfer or roll over money. And there are quite a few. The bottom line is that each account that you're considering has its own set of rules, restrictions, costs. Oftentimes we see people move their money based on a single factor. You know, I want more choices, or my advisor just said I should, or who knows what. But that single factor may not be all, and you very well ought to consider the whole range of factors in order to come up with a sound decision that you're going to be able to live with and like for the rest of your retirement. One of the first ones, one of the more obvious, is investment options. And this is one place we see that kind of bright line between IRAs and plans. IRAs often have tons and tons of choices. You might, by moving your money to an IRA, have access to hundreds of mutual funds, or perhaps annuity contracts or individual stocks and bonds. And that can be tempting. It can also be intimidating. Plans, on the other hand, like the TSP, tend to have a more constrained, a smaller investment menu. But those investments are, in some cases, less costly because you have access to, like, institutional shares. And those investment menus in a plan are selected and monitored by plan fiduciaries. These are people that are required to put your interests above their own. And, of course, the TSP takes that to the nth degree. In the TSP, the menu is just 5 low-cost, passively managed funds. And in fact, those funds, they're literally meant for each other. The 5 funds in the TSP were selected not just for their individual attributes, but because they go together very, very well. So building your portfolio in the TSP should be really easy. We know that the funds were designed to be combined with one another. The big decision that you have to make is how much, how much of each you're going to blend into that portfolio. How much of the riskier assets for long-term growth versus the more conservative assets designed for stability. Can you really be diversified with only 5 investment choices? Well, you don't have to take my word for it. Every so often, the TSP investment menu is reviewed by an independent expert. And the most recent review determined pretty much the same thing that all the prior reviews have said. The 5 core TSP investment alternatives span the risk-return spectrum and include all of the building blocks to build a diversified investment portfolio. Another key decision point is expenses or fees. Of course, the TSP is administered by a federal agency, not a for-profit. So you know that we don't have shareholders or members who expect a profit off the backs of our investors. We don't have a commissioned sales force, so you're not paying sales commissions or loads. We don't market the TSP per se, so you don't have things like 12B1 fees. There's no mortality and expense charges or any other hidden sort of expenses. So basically, you're keeping a lot more of the money that your investments are returning. The TSP is also an easy place to check up on. If you want to just see just how much of your own money you're keeping, remember these 4 of the 5 core funds are based on indexes that are widely used among financial services and very easy to obtain public information on. We publish this in some of our own publications. You can look at our fund information booklet available from the Forms and Publications section of tsp.gov and turn to the page on any one of the index funds. For example, the C fund tracks the S&P 500, and it stands to reason if a lot of money was going out the back door for expenses, you'd see that the returns in your C fund were not tracking the S&P 500 index very closely. Well, if you look down at the lower left-hand corner of that page, you'll see a table that shows you exactly what the returns have been on the raw index, the S&P 500, and right next to it, for each of several different periods, it shows you the after-expense returns of the C fund. And what you'll see here, and what you'd see with any of the other index funds, the F, the S, or the I, is that they track their respective indexes really closely. And again, what that means is the investment returns that you're getting are staying in your account. You're keeping more of your own money because of those low expenses. You can also find similar reporting on the web. If you go to the annual return pages, you can find a page that compares each of the TSP index funds to its respective index going back for several years. And once again, that just helps you to verify that the returns from your TSP investments are staying in your own account. Another decision point has to do with services. Financial institutions compete based on service in a lot of cases. And enhanced services are one thing that could make another account extremely tempting. They aren't free, though. So what you're really doing is kind of a cost-benefit analysis. Look at the services that are available with whatever other company you might be considering, and determine whether those services are valuable to you and how much you're willing to pay. The TSP has struck a very careful balance between service and cost without really sacrificing too much, I don't think. As far as, for example, education and assistance, if you've used the thrift line, you know that it's very responsive telephone helpline. You can get automated information round the clock, and you can get a live person on the phone 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. on any business day. And we measure our response times literally in seconds, not minutes. You can also go to the web to tsp.gov, where you'll find a wealth of informational articles and a lot of calculators, tools that you can use to help plan your retirement and make sure you're on track. You can also communicate with us through the website. There's a secure e-messaging feature available at tsp.gov that allows you to send messages and get personalized responses right over the web. We have really a whole library of print publications, if that's how you like to consume information. And we also have a staff of TSP training specialists that will come to your workplace and talk TSP with you live. So if you haven't had a TSP trainer come to your workplace, you should call us for that too. Another thing that's available in the TSP that we don't typically put in this service category, but I really think it belongs there, are the TSP life cycle funds. We know one of the most important aspects of managing your investments is keeping your asset allocation in line. Again, that's the blend between the riskier but more growth-oriented assets versus the more conservative, more stable assets. And right-sizing your asset allocation for your age and your risk level is probably the most important investment decision you're going to make. Not that hard to do it in the TSP because, those 5 choices are very straightforward. But if you don't want to do it yourself, either because you're not interested necessarily or don't quite feel confident or just don't have the time, the TSP life cycle funds are a way you can have it done for you. Each one is targeted toward a particular retirement time horizon. You can use your age to determine which one is your most appropriate for that time horizon. And once you've invested in a life cycle fund, your asset allocation is going to be managed automatically for as long as you stay in the fund. They aren't static; they evolve over time, and there are several levels at which they're sort of managed. They rebalance to target allocations every single business day, and they reallocate to make them, basically they get more conservative as you get closer to retirement. Hopefully by then you've saved more, you have more to lose in a market downturn. So they go from aggressive to conservative over the life of the fund. And the nice thing about the life cycle funds is that they are managed in a kind of an automatic fashion. There's a sort of a mechanical discipline that goes with these things that a lot of us just don't have on our own. They help us to avoid the sort of behavioral mistakes that human investors tend to make. So they don't freak out when the market drops. They don't get greedy and take excessive risks when the market seems to be trending upward. They just troop along that, what we call a glide path, from beginning to end. And if you choose to stay in the life cycle funds through retirement, they can take you all the way through retirement. Our L Income Fund is designed to be a static allocation that works very well with our monthly payment options. Another service, and again, we don't typically refer to it as a service, but I think it fits, is the TSP income options. I mentioned earlier that the TSP is kind of unusual in that it's designed to be a lifetime asset. It's not just something you hold while you're working for the federal government, but it's designed to take you to and then through retirement. And it does that by offering a couple of very powerful income-generating options. One we call monthly payments, which is basically a series of scheduled withdrawals that you take throughout retirement. That option gives you a lot of flexibility. Once you've set your monthly payments, you can continue to change them throughout your retirement. Every year you can change the amount of your payments. And the whole time you're receiving those payments, you're making active investment decisions. If you're not using the L income fund, you can do interfund transfers to manage your investments throughout retirement. If you'd like something that requires less decision making and takes some of the risks off your plate, we also have TSP life annuities. You can purchase a life annuity within the TSP, which will give you assured income for the rest of your life. And if you have a joint annuitant, a spouse or a significant other, you can insure income through both lives. And those two income options can be combined into a nice little package. You don't have to pick just one. You can actually combine them. So you could use the annuity to give you kind of like a third pension, a certain amount of guaranteed income. And then on top of that, use the monthly payments to give you access to the markets so you can continue to be an active investor and allow you to react to different events by raising or lowering your payments as you go through your retirement. I also think these income options are probably the most underappreciated feature of the TSP. I've talked to a lot of people who tell me they are contemplating leaving the TSP simply because we don't have options that give them easier access to their money. And I can see that. I can see the sort of a psychological barrier to staying when you don't have the ability to just invade the principal and grab money whenever you want it. But I'm not really sure I'd want to manage my retirement assets that way, to be honest. Most of us as federal employees or military members are used to receiving a paycheck. And I'm guessing most of us are in this line of work because we like receiving a paycheck every 2 weeks. Hopefully by the time we retire, we'll have gotten pretty good at it. After 20 or 30 or 40 years of living on a paycheck, we should have figured out how to do that successfully. Get yourself on a budget. Spend a little bit less than you make every month and save the rest so that you can save up for those big ticket purchases or to build an emergency fund to be able to react to unforeseen financial emergencies. And that gives us a sense of financial well-being. Well, the TSP allows you to carry that sense of well-being right into retirement by turning your account into a third retirement paycheck, something that can supplement the FERS pension, Social Security, and any other sources you might have. So before you consider transferring out just to have easier access to your money, weigh the value of that freedom against the sense of financial well-being that comes from having assured income every month. Actually, the TSP withdrawal options are pretty flexible, enough to give you a lot of different choices. I wish we had more time to talk about them here, but this is just a very small part of the rollover conversation. If you need more information on the withdrawal options, there's a publication for that. You can download Withdrawing Your TSP Account from tsp.gov. Or go to OPM's YouTube channel. There are 2 programs there that explore the income options, titled You Can Take It With You. And they describe how you can take your TSP into retirement with you and use it to generate that retirement paycheck. A couple other factors that might be very significant for some retirees. The early withdrawal penalty and required minimum distributions. The early withdrawal penalty pertains generally to folks who tap into their retirement assets before 59 and a half. There are some differences between IRAs and plans. Again, IRAs are individual accounts, so they aren't really coupled to your employment normally. So for IRAs, that 59.5 rule is pretty much across the board. There are some exceptions for specific personal circumstances, but generally you have to be 59.5 to get penalty-free withdrawals from your IRA. Employer plans have access. There's another rule that can benefit early retirees. It's tied to the point at which you separate from your employer. If you leave your employer during or after the year you turn 55, then you can take penalty-free withdrawals from that employer's plan. So if you work for the federal government until you're 55 or older and then separate, you can take penalty-free withdrawals from your TSP. That could be a very, 4.5 years earlier you get access to your money. That could not only be a reason to stay in the TSP, it could be a powerful decision factor in whether or not you move money from other IRAs into the TSP. Because when you move money from one plan to another, it's the gaining plan that establishes the rules. So moving IRAs into the thrift savings plan and then retiring at 55 or later could give you penalty-free access to more of your assets earlier. TSP also has a couple of specific options that are penalty-free at any age. The TSP life annuity we described, for example, is penalty-free regardless of the age at which you retire or start the payments. And there's also a monthly payment option that is penalty-free if you, instead of specifying a dollar amount, if you ask the TSP to compute your payments based on, we use life expectancy tables that the IRS offers, and if we compute your payments, then those payments will be penalty-free at any age. Now that comes with some complications. You want to make sure that the option is going to work for you for a longer period of time. You have to stick with it until you're 59.5 and for a minimum of 5 years. Otherwise, the penalty kicks back in. But if you're sure that option is going to work, you could start penalty-free income payments at any age. Then there's the required minimum distributions. These, as you probably know, these are withdrawals that you're required to take, generally starting after you attain the age of 70 1/2. And again, there are differences here between IRAs and plans, based on the fact that IRAs are not coupled to your employment, and plans are. IRAs, generally, you have to start taking required minimum distributions from your IRAs after attaining the age of 70 1/2, whether or not you're working. Now, Roth IRAs are a big exception to that. Roth IRAs are not subject to the required minimum distribution rules. But traditional, those RMDs must start after you attain the age of 70 1/2. A plan does not have to distribute that money to you as long as you continue to work. So if you love your job well enough to work past 70 1/2, or if you just feel like you have to work to have the level of financial security you're looking for, well, the money that's in your TSP can stay there. You don't have to start withdrawing at age 70 1/2, which means you can continue to accumulate more, you can build more wealth by allowing it to accumulate, and you can continue to postpone any taxes that might be due on that money. So that's not only a benefit for the money that's currently in your TSP, but like with the early withdrawal penalty, the ability to postpone those required minimum distributions could give you a powerful reason to move other money into the TSP, consolidate your traditional IRAs with your TSP balance to keep the RMDs at bay. Now, if you are still thinking about moving your TSP savings to another plan, I would suggest you go to tsp.gov and click on the banner that asks you, are you thinking about moving your TSP savings to another plan? That'll take you to a very short YouTube video, take a minute and 4 seconds of your life. And after watching the video, we would encourage you to click through to our scorecard. We have a retirement plan scorecard. There's an interactive version on the web that'll help you to work your way through 7 questions. After answering those 7 questions, you'll have a side-by-side comparison of the TSP and any other investment option you might be considering. And hopefully that will help you to make a more informed decision and one that you can live with. As we start to wrap up the scripted portion of the program, I would encourage you to send any questions that you might have. We have members of the OPM staff standing by to receive your questions at benefits@opm.gov. That's benefits@opm.gov, and we look forward to your questions. Can we take money from our savings and other outside investments? No, unfortunately, you cannot. The money that's transferable into the TSP has to come from an IRA or an eligible employer plan. And again, it has to come in the form of an eligible rollover distribution. So not all of those withdrawals, even from an employer plan, might be eligible for transfer into the TSP.
Okay, Kevin. The next question is, can a retiree who did not establish a Roth TSP prior to retirement establish a Roth TSP so that a private sector Roth account can be transferred into TSP?
Well, I'd have to know exactly what you mean by a private sector Roth account. If it's an IRA, if it's a Roth IRA, that money's not eligible to be transferred into the TSP. If it's a plan sponsored by a private sector employer, and there's a Roth balance, then that could be transferred into the TSP. And that would establish a Roth balance in your TSP.
This one's awfully related. Can a spouse's IRA be transferred to TSP?
No, and it's a really common question. But unfortunately, spousal assets can't be commingled that way. At least, unfortunately, not while both spouses are alive. So you'll have to keep those accounts separate.
All right, the next question is, can you please go over the tax-free annuity TSP offers in more detail?
Sure, we can go over the annuity in a little more detail, but I want to start by saying it's not tax-free. The annuity payments will be taxable to the extent that they're funded with traditional TSP money. What you're avoiding with the annuity is the tax penalty on early withdrawals. So the income taxes are one thing, they're unavoidable. But if you withdraw earlier, if you start those annuity payments early, before age 59 and a half, the annuity avoids the 10% additional penalty that otherwise you might have to worry about. And a little more information on the annuity. There are actually 18 different variations on that. All of them are fixed immediate annuities. All of them provide a guaranteed stream of payments for the rest of your life. You get to choose between a single life annuity that provides income just for you, a joint life annuity that provides income for you and a spouse or you and a significant other. And then there are some other features that you can choose to build in. For example, you can take straight payments that remain level throughout life, or you can build in a COLA. You can choose a feature that causes your payments to increase with inflation. You can also choose, and this is probably the biggest one, you can choose whether or not there's a death benefit associated with your annuity. And this is a huge psychological hurdle for a lot of people. It's hard to put a large lump sum into something like an annuity contract, knowing that if you die early, you may not benefit from the use of all that money. So when you purchase the annuity, you'll have the option to build in what we call a cash refund feature. And if you build that in, when you pass away, if there's unused principal, money that you haven't gotten back, that gets paid to your beneficiary. You can also choose to build in what we call a 10-year certain feature. That guarantees a minimum of 120 payments, 10 years worth of annuity payments. So if you've chosen that feature and you pass away before 10 years is up, then your beneficiary will get the remainder of those 120 payments. If you outlive the 120 payments, if you're still receiving annuity payments after 10 years, then you just continue to receive payments for life. Now, neither of those are free, although if you model them on our retirement income calculator, they don't look terribly expensive. But if you want to maximize your own income during life, you can waive the death benefits and just choose to receive a slightly larger payment while you're alive.
Is there a penalty if you retire under CSRS at 55 and withdraw your TSP completely?
No, there is not. If you retire, it doesn't matter what system you're under, if you retire during or after the year you turn 55, then you can withdraw your TSP without a penalty. And again, that doesn't mean without tax. That just means without the additional 10% penalty.
When an employee is in a phased retirement status, must they take the RMD?
No. When you're in phased retirement, you're still employed for TSP purposes. Now, there are categories of reemployed annuitants, and I don't know that wasn't the question, but as long as we're there, reemployed annuitants can be under one of two sorts of general arrangements. Some reemployed annuitants come back and have their pension offset by their salary, and if that's the case, then when you come back, you would still be employed for TSP purposes and still be eligible to participate in the TSP. Other times, reemployed annuitants come back with no offset. They receive their full salary and their full pension. And if that's the case, that individual would be considered separated for TSP purposes. They would not be able to contribute to the TSP. They would, however, be able to take withdrawals, and they would also be, once they attain 70 and a half, they'd be required to take their required minimum distributions. So that was a little bit off subject, but it seemed to fit.
When TSP receives a direct transfer, how do they communicate to the enrollee that the money has been added to their TSP?
You'll get a notice when that money's been added, and it does go in according to your contribution allocation on file. So note that the way your regular biweekly salary or monthly payment, whatever's going into the TSP, is invested, that's the same way we will invest your rollover or transfer contributions to the TSP.
How often does TSP reallocate funds in the L funds?
The reallocations in the L funds happen every 3 months. So basically at the end of every fiscal quarter, there will be one of those adjustments that makes your L fund just a little bit more conservative.
If my husband resigns from his private sector job, can he transfer his employer 401k plan into my TSP account?
Unfortunately, no. Again, that goes back to that sort of commingling of spousal assets. Now, if he wants a job with the government, he could come in and get a TSP account of his own and then transfer that 401k into his own. But no, that can't cross over from one spouse to another.
Is there any legislation on LEO employees being able to take their TSP before 55, aside from the examples you already discussed?
No, unfortunately, there's nothing I know of. There was some sort of draft legislation before the last Congress, but I don't think it really went very far. And now, having said that, I don't follow legislation really all that closely all the time, but I'm not aware of anything pending there.
If I retire at my MRA with 30 years of service and I am younger than 59 and a half, I understand I can begin TSP withdrawals. If I begin monthly TSP withdrawals, can I at age 59 and a half then move my entire account to a traditional IRA?
Yes, I'm not sure why you'd want to, but you could. And just to be clear, the MRA and all those service requirements and everything, those apply to your FERS pension. You don't need to worry about those at all when it comes to the TSP. All the TSP cares about is the age at which you separated. So based on the question, it sounds like you're going to separate during or after the year you turn 55. That's what makes you exempt from the early withdrawal penalty. And the question about, or the portion of that question about transferring the TSP, again, I don't know why you'd want to transfer it out, but if you do, the transfer is penalty-free. You're just moving your money from one tax-deferred umbrella to another. So a direct transfer is not going to be taxed or penalized either way. And you wouldn't have to wait till 59 and a half to do that necessarily.
How should I decide when or if to roll over from a traditional TSP to a Roth TSP?
Well, currently that feature is not available. That's what, like an IRA, you'd call that an in-plan conversion. Not to say that that will never be the case, but under the current plan design, we can't do an in-plan conversion. So any money that's been contributed to your account as traditional is going to have to remain in the traditional balance. Anything that's been contributed as Roth is going to have to remain in the Roth balance. And just a reminder, these questions are coming in at benefits@opm.gov. So keep them coming.
All right, Kevin, this question says, the TSP statement tells you that you'll earn XYZ per month for the rest of your life if you're at least getting XYZ rate of return on your TSP balance. Well, what's a person to do for the rest of their life age?
What was the last part of the question again, Candace?
Well, it says, well, what's a person rest of your life's age?
Oh, well, let me clarify what that is telling you. That estimate, the monthly payment estimate on your annual statement, that's derived from our annuity contract. And you can see those results in our retirement income calculator if you want to model them yourself. So what we did to come up with those estimates, we took your balance as of the date of the statement, December 31st of last year, the amount of money that you had in your account at that time. If you were 62 years old and purchased a TSP single life annuity, that would be the lifetime payment that you'd receive from the annuity. So we aren't really estimating what future interest rates are going to be. The annuity payments are actually calculated based on a current rate. So that would have been the case if you'd purchased an annuity during the period that the statements were being constructed. Does that make sense?
Next question. Did you say that the Roth balance in your TSP is subject to the RMD at 59.5?
Actually, I don't know if I said that or not. It's a good question, and in fact, it is. Unlike Roth IRAs, which are not subject to the RMD rules, your entire TSP balance is subject to required minimum distributions. And again, that's not just a TSP rule, that's characteristic of employer plans in general.
Okay, so Kevin, the next question says, can I transfer traditional TSP to Roth TSP? And if so, what are the implications?
Okay, yeah, unfortunately you cannot. That's a plan feature that we do not have at this time, so you can't transfer traditional TSP to Roth or vice versa. And again, we're taking these questions at benefits@opm.gov.
All right, the next question says, I'm excited to hear that the TSP funds allocation can continue to work with us through retirement, i.e. monthly payments, etc. Where might I find more information on the website regarding these opportunities?
There's a banner. In fact, it's on the slide there, if that's still on the screen. That represents the menu on the TSP website. If you just go to the Investments tab, you'll find information on the life cycle funds. I believe that's what the question is about. And maybe I can give you a little bit more about that. The five life cycle funds, well, four of the five are designed to get you to retirement. There's the 2050, the 2040, the 2030, and the 2020 fund. And those are dynamic. Those are following a glide path that's causing them to go from more aggressive to more conservative over time. Once they reach their target date, each of those funds is converted to shares in what we call the L income fund, or the life cycle income fund. That's the one that's designed for retirees that are receiving monthly payments. I mean, anybody can use it, but it's really targeted toward that group. The L income fund is a static allocation. It doesn't change over time, and it's mostly G fund. About 3/4 of your money's in the G fund, and the rest is split among the other index funds. And that's designed to be a very conservative, stable fund that works well with monthly payments because it's not going to be going up and down so much with market movements. Just to give you an idea of how that might work, first of all, there's no guarantee against losses. Your money's in the investment markets, and it's going to do what the markets do. But because there's such a heavy allocation to the G fund, it really kind of like has shock absorbers on it. So in 2008, when some index funds lost 30 or 40% of their value, the L income fund lost about 5%. The losses were very, very mitigated because it was so conservative. Then last year, when I think the G fund was paying, I don't know, in the 2% range, the L income fund actually paid about 7%, significantly more than the G fund, just thanks to that small allocation to stocks and bonds. So the L income fund is a great companion to monthly payments, but it is a choice. You can certainly manage your money however you like if you remain in the TSP.
Can I transfer my TSP Roth balance to an already existing Roth IRA?
Yes, you certainly can. Again, you have to be eligible for a withdrawal in order to do a transfer out of the TSP, though. So you would need to be eligible for an age-based withdrawal. If you're still working and over 59 and a half, you get a one-time during the life of the account. You can choose to take an age-based withdrawal. That would be an eligible rollover distribution. If you're already separated and haven't done the age-based, you could do what we call a partial withdrawal. That would be a eligible rollover distribution that's transferable to an IRA. Or if you're ready to start your income payments and you want to turn on monthly payments or purchase the annuity and also have a portion of that transferred out to an IRA, that would be an eligible rollover distribution. Those are the three most prominent opportunities to move it out, and each is a one-time only during the life of the account.
So the next question says, can a child or a grandchild qualify to have a BPA? If so, how does it work? And when does the beneficiary take money?
Okay. Well, unfortunately, no. The BPA is a beneficiary participant account. That's a benefit that's only available to spouses of deceased TSP participants. So if you're married and your spouse is your beneficiary at the time of your death, then this is a great benefit. We create the BPA, the beneficiary participant account, for that spouse. We transfer the money into it, invest it in the G fund so they don't have to worry about investment losses or volatility until they kind of get their feet on the ground. And then we notify the spouse. This always sounds a little too cheerful, but we send them a welcome letter. We let them know that they have their own unique account, their password, their PIN, and we let them know what they can do with that account. In many ways, it's the same as a regular TSP account. They just can't add any new money, so a spouse who inherits the TSP cannot do transfers or rollovers into their BPA. They also aren't eligible to take loans. But other than that, they can manage the money the same way you would yours, and they can turn on the income at any time using those the options we talked about, monthly payments or the TSP life annuity. And payments from a beneficiary participant account are penalty-free because death benefits are not subject to the early withdrawal penalty. So it's a fabulous benefit. It's a great way for a widow or a widower to stay invested, take advantage of the benefits of the TSP, at least while they're grieving, so that they don't have to make a big financial decision in the midst of their grief. Then, when they finally have a chance to analyze their benefits and decide where the best place is for that money, they can choose to stay in the TSP or take a withdrawal that's going to be eligible for transfer to some other account. But again, that benefit is only available to a spouse beneficiary. It would not be available to children or grandchildren.
Next question, if I were to sign up for a lifetime annuity payment and then pass away after receiving 2 payments, what happens to the remaining money? Do I lose it?
Again, that depends on whether you've chosen to have a joint annuitant and whether you've built a death benefit into the annuity. So if you have a single life annuity and no death benefit, then yes, the income would stop when you pass away. If it's a joint life annuity, then payments would continue to your joint annuitant, so your spouse or your significant other would continue to receive those payments for the rest of his or her life. And if you've built in a death benefit, that could be a cash refund to your beneficiary, or it could be the remainder of that 120 payments under the 10-year certain feature. The trade-off, if you choose not to have a death benefit, the payments stop when you die, but they'll also be a little bit larger while you're alive than they otherwise would have been.
I think you've addressed this, Kevin, but I will go ahead and ask the question.
Okay.
She says, can you start an annuity at any time after retirement or age, like at age 80?
Well, you can start at pretty much any time, but unfortunately right now you can't wait until you're 80. There is a thing called a longevity annuity, which starts at an advanced age, but the TSP doesn't offer those. So the longest you could wait would be age 70 and 1/2. And actually there's a little bit of a grace period. You can wait until April 1st of the year following the year that you turn 70 and 1/2. But at that point, you have to elect a full withdrawal, which means either start the income in the form of monthly payments or the annuity, or take your money out. And once you're receiving payments from the TSP, those required minimum distributions are no longer transferable to an IRA. So if you were going to buy an annuity at an advanced age, you're probably going to have to do it with taxable money, not a transfer from the TSP.
I have contributed over the maximum amount to my Roth TSP. How do I transfer the excess contributions and earnings to a regular TSP?
Well, unfortunately, you can't transfer those from the Roth TSP to the regular TSP. And I'm sorry, Clyde, did he say that, did the caller say that they contributed more than the max?
Yes, over the maximum amount.
That's not actually possible. We're keeping track of you. Once you get to the maximum amount, your payroll office probably has an edit that's going to stop it. And the TSP also has an edit that's going to reject any contributions that would take you over the maximum. So this individual, you might be talking about the maximum required to get the 5% match, or some people still think that the maximum contribution is 15% of basic pay. We talk to a lot of people that still recall those percentage maximums, and they're gone. It's been several years since there was a percentage max. So you're probably okay. The one case where we see people do contribute above the max is folks that have access to 2 different plans, say the TSP here and maybe a 401k with some other, like a part-time employer or something like that. If that's the case, you can request that the TSP refund the excess contribution, but I'm afraid we're past the deadline for that for this tax year.
All right, so this question, again, you talked about it a little bit before, but just so I can bring the question up. It says, I was recently told by a financial advisor that if I took the TSP allotment of a certain amount per month, if I were to die, The remainder in my account would not go to my beneficiaries. Is this correct?
No, that's patently false. Now, the way the death benefits are paid depends on what option you've chosen. Again, the income options from the TSP are, number one is monthly payments. And when you select monthly payments, you're still controlling the account. You still have money in the TSP. So if you should pass away, the money that's in your account in the TSP is paid to your beneficiaries, period. Again, if you're receiving monthly payments from the annuity contract, then the death benefit is only available if you select it. So there's a grain of truth in there. If I selected the annuity with no joint annuitant and no death benefit, then when I pass away, the money stops. But there are plenty of ways to avoid that situation.
Next question. So cash savings would have to be put into a Roth IRA to get transferred into a TSP?
Well, not a Roth IRA. Again, your Roth IRA is not transferable to the TSP. We just can't accept that color of money. If you are eligible to contribute to a traditional IRA, you could, in fact, you could put your cash in the traditional IRA up to the contribution limits and then transfer it to the TSP. But again, there are contribution limits based on your income, based on whether you're a participant in a retirement plan. So you don't have the unlimited opportunity to just stuff cash in an IRA and then transfer it to the TSP, I'm afraid.
Do I have to set up a formal income option, or can I just leave my money in TSP after retirement? And if I don't need the money, just ask for a RMD distribution each year once I am 70 and a half?
We don't have an annual RMD distribution option, but to attend to the first part of your question, if you don't need the income as soon as you retire, you can absolutely leave it in the TSP. You don't have to do a thing. So that's, in fact, that's a great option if you can afford to do without that extra income. Just leave it in the TSP and let it keep growing and postpone the taxes as long as you can. When you become subject to the RMD requirements, when you have to start taking the money, although we don't make annual payments, we do have an option that pays you just your RMDs. We call it monthly payments. It's one of the monthly payment options. And if you ask the TSP to compute your payments, then we will compute your annual required minimum distribution, divide it by 12, and we'll distribute it to you in form of monthly payments. So by the end of the year, you will have gotten just what you were supposed to have to avoid any sort of penalty. Another option, which I see a fair number of people getting it, if you want to leave the money in your account as long as possible and get as much growth as you can, you could also turn on monthly payments at the minimum amount. You could turn on monthly payments for as little as $25 a month. Now, that's not going to meet your RMD, I'm pretty sure. But at the end of the year, the TSP will have been tracking your payments and comparing them to your RMD. And if you haven't satisfied the required distribution by the end of the tax year, we're going to send you a supplemental payment. We're going to send you a 13th payment to make sure that you meet the RMD. This was sort of cute. We had an experience not too long ago. One of my coworkers got a phone call from a lady she was a little concerned. She called up to say she hadn't gotten her Christmas bonus and wondered what was the matter. Turns out she'd been receiving monthly payments for several years, and I guess her payments always lowballed her RMD a little bit. So at the end of the year, she got that supplemental payment. And then last year, I guess her account balance had dwindled a little bit, or her payments got bigger, and her 12 monthly payments were enough to satisfy the RMD. So we didn't have to send the supplemental payment, and she was bummed. She thought it was a Christmas bonus all these years. But sorry, off track. But
if I'm retired from federal government service and no longer working at age 70 and a half, then I must receive the required minimum distribution?
Yes, if you're retired from federal service and no longer working, When you get to age 70 and a half, you have to start the RMDs. Now, I mentioned you have a grace period. You can actually push off that first year RMD into your second distribution year by waiting until April 1st of the following year. But be aware that doesn't count for the second. You still have to take one every year. So if you take advantage of that grace period and push off your first RMD into the following year, you're going to end up taking 2 taxable payments during that year. So you end up with one payment which you have to take by April 1st and another payment for that second year which you have to take by December 31st. So you will pay tax on twice as much income in the second distribution year.
This next question I actually can answer. It says, will this presentation and slides be posted somewhere for later review? And the answer, of course, is yes, it will, on OPM's website. And once it's posted, along with the presentation, we will send out another email to let individuals know that they can go there and review it again.
This question is, I have both Roth and traditional TSP. When I take monthly payments, do I have to choose which one to draw from?
No, you do not. In fact, under the current rules, we use what's called a pro rata distribution scheme, meaning that every distribution, every payment you're going to get is going to reflect the balance of traditional versus Roth in your overall account. So let's say you 80% of your money's in the traditional balance and 20 is in the Roth. If you get a $1,000 payment, we're going to pull $800 or 80% from the traditional and 20% from the Roth. So you can't selectively take from one balance or another. What that does mean is that every payment is going to be taxable. There's going to be a little bit less taxable income in every one of those payments because each one is going to include a little bit of your hopefully qualified Roth money.
All right, Kevin, so retention is the mother of retention. Can we place money from a Roth IRA into a TSP?
Unfortunately, no. We just cannot accept money from a Roth IRA. Only other employer plans that have Roth balances. And again, we're taking your questions at benefits@opm.gov.
Is a transfer at retirement from TSP to a Roth IRA limited to a yearly limit established by the IRS?
No, there's no limit on transfers. Neither is there a dollar limit or a limit on the number of transfers. What's going to limit you is the limited number of withdrawals that you have from the TSP. Because again, your withdrawal options are relatively constrained, and you have to be taking a withdrawal that constitutes an eligible rollover distribution in order to have that money transferred.
Okay, it says, I have a Roth IRA with my personal bank. Can this be transferred to my TSP Roth? I think we addressed that already, but it says, I'm confused by what seems to be different types of Roth IRAs.
There's a lot of variety among Roth IRAs. You can have a Roth IRA with your bank, your credit union, your brokerage, your insurance company. Each one might have different investment alternatives, but they all subject to the same restriction. Roth IRAs are not transferable into the thrift savings plan.
This one says, if I die, can my spouse get my retirement funds, which we'd have to assume they're talking about TSP since that's what we were talking about.
So, yeah, I'll assume that question's about funds in the TSP. And absolutely, if you do not designate a beneficiary, then your spouse would be the default primary beneficiary of your TSP account. If you choose to designate a beneficiary, you can designate anybody, any legal entity, and you can have as many beneficiaries as you want. So if you're putting it in writing, if you're designating beneficiaries and you want your spouse to be one of them, you have to put his or her name on that TSP3 designation form. But yes, your spouse can inherit your TSP account, And another caller mentioned the BPAs. Once your spouse inherits your TSP, we're going to create a special account just for him or her, transfer the proceeds to that account, and then let them know that they can keep the account, they can withdraw it, they can transfer to their own 401k or their own thrift plan, or just enjoy receiving income right out of the beneficiary account.
Kevin, how do I get the 1% that is going into the G fund changed to the other accounts?
There's actually two transactions that sounds like you might need to do. One we call an interfund transfer. If we were a mutual fund company, you might call it a fund exchange or something like that. You can do it over the phone on our thrift line, or you can do it at tsp.gov all by yourself. Just go into your account. Follow the links to interfund transfers, and the screen is really intuitive. It's not like trading individual stocks or mutual fund shares. You'll just see empty boxes by each of the funds, and you put in the percentage of your account that you want to see invested in each of those funds. So if you've got money in the G fund, you'll see what percentage of your account is there in one box, and then you can enter into the box over to the right what percentage you want in the G fund or the life cycle fund or wherever you want your money to go. Now, those interfund transfers only move money that's already in the plan and already invested. If your money's going to the G fund, it's because you have a contribution allocation to the G fund. That's a separate transaction, and it's one that you also might want to change. Your contribution allocation tells the TSP how to invest new money as it comes into the plan. So every time you get paid, every time you make a loan payment, every time you do a transfer in, the TSP looks at your contribution allocation, and that tells us which of the funds to put your money in and in what percentages. So if you want to change your allocation to the G fund, it sounds to me like you might want to do both of those transactions. Do a contribution allocation, and that will tell the TSP to put any new money that comes in this new investment strategy, whatever you're working out. And the interfund transfer can grab your old money and have that line up with your new strategy as well. Easy to do on the web, but if you've never done it before, you might want to call the thrift line and select option number 3 to put you in touch with one of our service reps, and they can walk you through it. They'll make sure they understand what you want to do and help to get it done for you.
Can you discuss the withdrawal options for law enforcement officers who retired at age 50?
Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of great options, and thanks for your service. I wish we had a better way to take care of really young LEOs and firefighters. The options are limited, though, and you have to be careful. The first time you get sort of a blanket exception to the early withdrawal penalty is by retiring during or after the year you turn 55. So at age 50, you have a couple of options. If you have other sources of income and you can afford to wait until 59 1/2, then you can withdraw without penalty. If you want to turn on the income sooner, you could use the TSP life annuity option if that works for you, because those payments are penalty-free. Or you could turn on monthly payments. Select the monthly payment option, tell the TSP to compute your monthly payments, and then your payments will be penalty-free as well. But the caveat with those monthly payments is you can't change your mind later on without triggering the penalty. So if you select monthly payments computed by the TSP, you must be prepared to receive that form of payment until you're 59 1/2. Because the penalty doesn't go away until 59 1/2. And if you change your mind before then, let's say you're 58 years old and you change from payments that we're computing to, let's say you want $1,000 a month. Well, that's going to kick in the penalty going forward all the way up to 59 1/2. But worse yet, it's going to cause the IRS, they have to recapture the penalty on all your prior payments. So you could find yourself in a situation where you're being penalized retroactively for 8 years' worth of income. So before selecting the monthly payments based on life expectancy to get around the penalty, make sure it's an option you can live with for the entire term that it takes to get around the penalty.
Can a retiree move TSP funds to the life cycle fund after having been retired for a number of years?
Oh yeah, you can manage your investments the same when you're retired as you have been while you're employed. Every TSP participant gets 2 unrestricted, no-fee transactions a month to move your money around. Way more than anybody ought to need. So, and that's that interfund transfer that I mentioned earlier. Go to tsp.gov or call us on the Thrift line. You can do an interfund transfer as often as twice a month to continue to manage your investments and move your money among the various TSP funds.
Next question, can Roth balances in a TSP plan be transferred to an outside Roth to avoid the required minimum distribution requirements?
Yes, they certainly can, and I've heard more than one person say they're doing that for that very reason. And like the whole point of the presentation was, you don't move your money out based on one single factor. But if that's an important decision point to you, yes, you can. Again, the other part of that is transferring your money out is not a standalone transaction. It'll need to be part of your withdrawal planning, because you only have a select number of withdrawal opportunities.
Excuse me. My sister has inherited her sister's TSP. Can she keep the TSP, or is she required to transfer it into another investment?
Yeah, unfortunately, a sibling who inherits a TSP account cannot remain in the TSP. So we're going to have to make a lump sum distribution of that money. There is such a thing as an inherited IRA. So the sister could transfer the money to an inherited IRA. They don't work like regular retirement IRAs. You can't just leave the money there and let it grow until 70 and a half or whatever. The owner of the inherited IRA would have to start taking distributions based on life expectancy. But that could prolong the life of the account and keep it growing for a long, long time. So can't stay in the TSP, but there is an option using the inherited IRA where they could postpone the taxes and spread them out over a much longer period of time.
Kevin, this person says, I did a rollover transfer to a personal IRA. When I retire, can I transfer those assets back into TSP for a life annuity?
As long as you haven't emptied the TSP account. If your withdrawals have taken your TSP down to 0, then you cannot reopen the account with a transfer. But if there's money in your TSP and you've got money in a traditional IRA that you want to transfer back, absolutely you can do that. And then you have up until age 70 and a half before you have to make a decision. The other thing that, I don't know if this plays in that question or not, the TSP withdrawal options, when you do your full withdrawal, you have those 3 choices: lump sum, single payment, monthly payments, and the TSP life annuity. You can mix and match those. You can actually choose all 3 in some sort of combination if you want. But they all have to be chosen at the same time, and they all execute immediately. So if you're intending to come back and invest in the TSP life annuity at some point, make sure you haven't used up your full withdrawal option. Because if you've already taken money out under a full withdrawal or started a series of payments, then you no longer have that annuity option.
Kevin, do you have an update on the March 24th Washington Post article regarding the changes to the G Fund?
No, I don't. That's something we're watching, but I don't know how that's going to play out. Of course, the TSP position is that we'd like to keep the G Fund just like it is. But
what happens if you buy a TSP annuity and the insurance company goes bankrupt?
Well, first of all, that's probably highly unlikely. One of the things that the board considered when they selected the annuity vendor was their financial strength. And we do monitor our vendors on a continuing basis to look for signs of trouble. However, it's a valid concern. The TSP does not insure, no federal entity insures those annuities. The guarantee is really based on the insurance company's own reserves. But there's also a network of state guarantee associations, so you would have some protection based on your own state guarantee association, and they have a lot of tools. You know, if an insurance company starts to falter, the guarantee association in that state has a series of incremental steps. They don't just wait for an insurance company to go belly up. They can take a series of incremental steps to help out, up to and including they can put the company in receivership and actually start running the daily operations of that insurance company to bring them back to health. So there's a whole series of backstops. But maybe, I don't know if the answer you may be looking for is the federal government does not insure those annuities.
Kevin, can we start the TSP annuity while still employed?
No, you cannot. All your TSP withdrawal options, except for the age-based, are triggered by your separation from federal service. So you're not eligible for the annuity or any of those other withdrawal options until we receive a separation code from your employer.
Can I do a direct transfer from TSP to a CSRS voluntary contributions account?
That's a little out of my lane, but as far as I know, you cannot. You can, however, if you establish the voluntary contribution account, you can transfer the tax-deferred portion of that to your traditional TSP when you withdraw it. As far as I know, that's only a one-way transaction, though. You can't move from TSP to the voluntary contributions.
If I took a withdrawal after age 59 and a half, then when I retire, can I still take a combination of a lump sum withdrawal and a monthly payment?
Yes, you can. The two withdrawal options that are mutually exclusive, the one that's available while you're working is called an age-based in-service withdrawal. That's a lump sum that you can take before you separate, based only on your age. The corollary to that, after you separate, we have an option called a partial withdrawal, which is very much the same thing, except it's after you've retired, so we call it something other than an in-service withdrawal. So they're mutually exclusive. You can either take the age-based in-service withdrawal while you're working or the partial withdrawal after you separate. But neither of those hinder your ability to take what we call the full withdrawal. And that name can be misleading. You know, we say full withdrawal, it sounds like you have to take all your money out. But the full withdrawal option in the TSP, actually, that's the one that allows for mixed options. So the options that are available under what we call the full withdrawal include the monthly payments, the single payment, and the annuity. And you can actually come up with a package that combines any two or all three of those. Again, the only restriction is that you have to ask for them all at the same time.
Can a SEP or SEP RA be transferred into the TSP?
Yes, it can, and I'm going to show my ignorance here. Either a SEP or a simple has a 2-year holding period. So there might be some restrictions. I wish I could remember which one it was, but generally, yes, that can be transferred, and that also depends on its being a traditional IRA. Again, if it's a Roth, then that's not eligible for transfer into the TSP.
Can I take RMD instead of an annuity?
Well, RMD is not. It's kind of apples and oranges in that question. RMD is not actually a withdrawal option from the TSP, so it's not like you can take that instead of anything really. Any of your TSP withdrawal options, however, is going to satisfy your required minimum distribution. The RMD is just a dollar amount. That's just an amount the IRS says you've got to take. The withdrawal options, and again, monthly payments, annuity payments, or the single payment, any one of those or any combination of those is going to automatically satisfy your RMD. So all you have to do is pick the one that works best for you. If it's a single payment, obviously, you're getting a lump sum of cash. That'll satisfy the requirement that you take money out of your plan. Monthly payments, as I mentioned, there's two ways that those can satisfy your RMDs. If you specify the dollar amount, then we keep track for you. And the RMD or the monthly payments that you receive from the TSP, if they don't, over the course of 12 payments, satisfy your required distributions, then we'll just cut you a 13th check and send you the supplemental payment. If you choose monthly payments based on life expectancy, then they are calculated from the same tables as your RMDs. So they will be automatically satisfying your RMDs in 12 equal monthly payments.
Does an employer receive matching government contributions if they contribute to both a traditional and Roth TSP?
Yes, you do. The tax character of your contributions has no effect on your matching contributions. So you can do Roth or traditional or some combination of the two, as long as your contributions total, the dollar amount of your contributions totals 5% of your salary, your basic pay or better, then you'll get the full match. Doesn't matter whether it's Roth or not. It's the raw dollar amount. Now, having said that, it's also important to note the matching money that goes into your account does not go into the Roth balance. It goes into the traditional balance, regardless of the tax character of your contributions.
Are IRAs tax-free?
They are not. IRAs, just like the thrift plan and other employer plans, they're tax favored. They give you certain tax advantages, but they are not tax free. So if you choose a Roth IRA, just like the Roth TSP, you'll pay taxes on your contributions during the year you earn the money. It grows tax deferred in the account. You won't pay taxes on the money as it's accumulating in your account. And in a Roth account, as long as your withdrawals are what we call qualified, the distributions, the money that comes back out to you, could be tax-free. In order to have a qualified Roth balance, you just have to meet two simple hurdles. You have to have at least 5 years of participation, and you have to be 59 and a half years old. Now, the money in your traditional balance is tax-deferred from the get-go. So when you contribute money to your traditional TSP balance, you're actually getting a tax break. That's reducing the taxable income during the year that you make the contributions. On the back end, when you take the money out of your traditional TSP, then it's all taxable, contributions and earnings, and it's all taxable at the ordinary income rate. Excuse me.
Next question, Kevin. How do I compare the costs of a TSP versus my current retirement accounts?
I'm sorry, what was the last part of that question, Clyde?
They're looking for how to compare the cost of TSP versus their current retirement accounts. Of course, we don't know what their current retirement accounts are.
Now companies are getting more transparent about fees. The Department of Labor and others have been really trying hard to get better disclosures out there so that you can actually see what your investments are costing you. I know the Investment Company Institute has something they call the all-in fee, which tries to capture everything, the investment expenses that are like underlying your mutual funds, trading costs, commissions and sales loads, everything. If the disclosures aren't quite that transparent, it could be kind of hard to find what all you're paying. but it's worth checking. Now, the TSP discloses its costs at the end of every year because we don't have any preset fees or anything. We just have a budget that we use to administer the plan. A little bit of the TSP administrative costs are harvested every day, and that is ultimately reflected in the share prices. So once the share prices are calculated, it's like what you see is what you get. You're not seeing earnings coming in the front door and going back out the back. And for the last couple of years, the cost of the TSP, the administrative expense ratio, has been under 3 basis points. It's actually 29 thousandths of 1%. That's 29 cents on every $1,000 that you have invested in the TSP. So there's a baseline you can kind of use for comparison.
Kevin, this question says, I am retiring at the end of this month and plan to do a direct rollover into an IRA. But can I take cash out at the same time to pay off bills at retirement? And if so, how would I do that?
Okay, well, congratulations on your retirement, first of all. And yes, you can do that if that's what's going to work out the best for you. But any cash that you take out in order to pay those bills is going to be taxable during the year you receive it. So make sure you're doing tax planning along with your bill planning and your budgeting. The way you would do that is to request a TSP full withdrawal. You use Form TSP-70. And when you look at the options, you can take, it sounds like what you want to do is take a single payment withdrawal. That's a single option. You would indicate 100% that you want that percentage of your balance used for the single payment. And then you're going to tell us what percentage of that you want transferred to your IRA. Anything that's not transferred to your IRA is going to be paid to you in cash, reported on a 1099-R, and now there will be a withholding taken from that for tax purposes. So the first 20% comes off the top. We have to send that to the IRS. The remainder is going to be available to you for paying off those bills. So you might even want to talk to if you have a CPA or a financial planner, somebody that helps with this kind of thing, to do some prior planning and get the amounts right. The amount that's directly transferred to your IRA is not going to be a taxable event. The amount that's paid to you in cash is. So that's I think probably the major planning point there.
Kevin, they alerted us that this is the last email question today because we're only going until 2:30. Can someone who is interested in retirement in the next year contact someone at TSP to assist them with estimates for monthly and life annuity payments?
Actually, you probably want to use the retirement income calculator at tsp.gov. That will model payments. You can use that to model monthly payments from your account and or annuity payments. So just follow the links from the Planning and Tools section to the Retirement Income Calculator. You have to put in a fair number of inputs. You have to be a little patient. It's going to ask for quite a bit of information up front. And some of it's more relevant to annuities than others because, again, it's going to model both monthly payments and annuities. But once you get all the input in there, you'll see a series of tabs across the top of the calculator screen. And you can click on monthly payments, you can click on single life annuity, joint life annuity, and then on the right-hand side of the calculator, you can click on and off a whole bunch of annuity features so you can kind of price them side by side. Just one thing to note about the annuity calculator, the interest rate assumption that we use for annuities is real. What's in the calculator is the actual interest rate index that's in effect at the time you're doing the calculations. Now, it's not going to swing dramatically around. It's not going to change in dramatic ways, but it is reset every month. So the annuity estimates that you get in one month may be slightly different than the actual annuity calculation if it's done in another month. It'll be close, but just be aware that it does change over time. So that was the last question, I guess? All right,
Kevin,
well, thanks.
I'm sorry, yes, that is the last question we're going to do. We still have over 100 questions that we didn't get to, so maybe we can do like we did before and get the questions answered another way.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon. And when's the next one, you guys? Are we promoting another one of these?
We'll send an email out.
Okay, we'll send an email out. Thank you all.